So one of the things that the wrestling news covered over the past few days is, I'm sure, the big announcement that thankfully the wrestling gods have smiled on everyone, and we are going to be able to see on a regular basis for the next 5 years on our televisions, if AEW lasts that long, Plumber Moxley. He's re-signed and he's back, and he's 10 pounds heavier, and he's learned a new hold, and he's going to have an even more important position molding the young minds of professional wrestling. Is this what I'm hearing?
This is what you're hearing, and this is the news. The Wrestling News did cover it this past week. I'm actually going to pull up the official statement here because Tony Khan and AEW put out a press release announcing this. This wasn't something leaked. This was something actually broken by AEW.
Oh, it was broken, all right.
Before we get to anything else, do you have any issue with the idea of extending Jon Moxley right now?
No, I think he should be extended. I think he should be drawn and quartered. I'd put him on the rack and stretch him any way we can stretch him.
Contractually.
Contractually, I'd like to see him banned contractually. Read the press release because it writes itself, and then I want to comment on everything.
Here it is, Jim. October 7th, 2022. Jon Moxley signs 5-year extension with AEW, expanding roles into mentorship and coaching. AEW CEO, GM, and head of creative, Tony Khan, announced that
And wait, as Mama Cornette would say, and chief cook and bottle washer.
Announced that AEW World Champion Jon Moxley has signed a 5-year contract extension. This ensures that one of professional wrestling's top stars will remain in All Elite Wrestling through 2027, while expanding his responsibilities to include mentoring and coaching talent. Moving forward, Moxley will work exclusively for AEW and its international partners, including New Japan Pro Wrestling, where he is a 2-time IWGP United States Heavyweight Champion. Moxley has had an incredible run in 2022, most recently recapturing the AEW World Championship at AEW Dynamite Grand Slam against Bryan Danielson, pitting the Blackpool Combat Club's top stars against one another for the grandest prize in professional wrestling. He defends the AEW World Championship next against Hangman Adam Page in his hometown of Cincinnati, Ohio, on October 18th, on a special Tuesday edition of AEW Dynamite live on TBS.
Oh, geez. Wait a minute. Remind me of that. I'll need to jot that down.
Moxley will kick off the action on tonight's live episode of AEW Rampage, the first night of Year 4 of AEW on TNT at 10 p.m. We have a quote here from Tony Khan. Jon Moxley is on the best run of his already legendary career, and this 5-year extension ensures that he was not only here for AEW's meteoric rise, but also remains a key part.
Also remains here for its meteoric fall.
Let me finish. But also remains a key part of the sustained success we're witnessing, just days after the 3-year anniversary show for AEW Dynamite. Jon is a great world champion for us in his 3rd reign. His wrestling mind is invaluable, and our roster is lucky to have the opportunity to utilize him as a mentor and a coach as we continue to build the stars of today and tomorrow. And finally, a quote from Jon Moxley here. I love AEW in the spirit of both the company and its fans, said Jon Moxley. I cherish our shared passion for the sport of professional wrestling, and I'm going to dedicate everything I have in mind, body, and spirit to helping AEW be the best it can going forward. Also, I'm going to drink Tony Khan's blood and crack his bones. Some of that may not have been there, but
everything he has in mind, body, and spirit, and a couple bucks will get you a cup of coffee. Not even at Starbucks these days. Boy, inflation has even hit all the old sayings, right?
Before we get to the actual statement, what's in there and your thoughts on it all, I will say Dave Meltzer, I saw, reported that Moxley was actually not working with a contract for at least a little while now. So their AEW World Champion was someone not under contract.
Well, of course he wasn't, because that's never bitten anybody else in the ass. But no, in this case, I'm not questioning Moxley's motives, because in all honesty, I can't imagine they want his ass back when they've seen what he's been doing lately and what he enjoys doing. And here's my comments. A key phrase, I believe, in that press release was, "will wrestle exclusively for AEW and its," what are they phrased, international partners. That Tony maybe has finally smartened up, and that's probably what the holdup of the contract was, now that we think about it. Even further is Tony smartened up and realized that this guy is going to work on every garbage show that he can for his jollies. That's what he does. He uses the paycheck that he gets from what is allegedly the second biggest wrestling promotion it's allegedly a legitimate wrestling promotion, second biggest wrestling promotion in the country. He uses that check to finance his forays into garbage matches with convicted felons on the indie, not even the legitimate indies, but he likes the garbage matches. That's what remember on Dark Side of the Ring, the quote that he had about the bank-addicted drug robber? Oh, he's fucking great. He likes that shit. He's a mental case. So, as far as the holdup of the contract and that little line about exclusively for us and New Japan and our partners, unless he's going to decide to partner, go full mud show, Tony, and partner with the garbage people, that's what he's trying to prevent. He's got, and it was only a matter of time before his champion was going to get hurt. Again, this time it'd be Moxley. Last time it was Punk. Time before I have somebody, whatever, doing that shit. And also it looks like Ned just looks horrible reflecting on the company when their champion is wallowing around in broken glass and thumbtacks with some fucking, we all know that Nick Gage has something going on mentally. I don't know if he did it to himself because of the drugs he took or whether that was the reason why he chose a life of bank robbing, drug addicting, and fucking garbage wrestling. But he's some type of something. I don't want to insult anybody. Elevator don't go to the top floor. This is Moxley's hero. So, if I was Tony Khan, yes, I would have never had, and I would have closed that loophole, I would have never had a guy that I was using at the level of Jon Moxley being allowed to go out and do shit like that. And who knows what kind of fucking headlines those shows are going to make. Guy bleeds out. Guy airlifted to fucking local medical facility before main event featuring TNA, AEW World Champion. Or some fucking unsavory, felonious predator, otherwise than the one that gets all the attention, is on the show and makes some headlines. And he was working with the current AEW World Champion. So yes, Tony wanted to close that loophole up. But I don't argue. Besides 5 years, how old is Moxley?
Let me look that up.
Well, he's got to be in his late 30s, and he looks older because of the balding plumber gimmick he's got going on.
36.
Okay, so he'll be there till he's 41 with all the shit that he's doing and continues to do. But nevertheless, if I was Tony, I wouldn't be signing a guy like that to 5 years, but that's probably what he was strong-armed into doing to get Moxley to give up the garbage matches and the indie shows. So I've got to have him. I can't lose someone else. Everybody I've got's hurt or suspended. And so Moxley bends Tony over and says, okay, I won't do my hobby garbage matches. Give me 5 years and even more money. Okay. Again, I don't have a problem with Tony signing a top guy to a new contract in his current situation. The fans that are AEW fans love Plumber Moxley. But I wouldn't have let myself get in a position he's already been in, because conveniently, the same time as he announces this new contract with Moxley, what did Jon Moxley do on a pier in Atlantic City over the weekend. He did a job for the bank-addicted drug robber at a garbage show for their garbage title that he also held. And I know some people are going to say the AEW apologists, well, there was outside interference in the match by people that will tie into AEW's storylines. Is that what they're saying, right?
I believe they had Stokely Hathaway and W. Morrissey there representing the firm, MJF's faction on retainer, I think it's called, to attack Moxley, leading to him losing to Nick Gage on the pier.
And I bet you that Tony had to insist on that because I bet you Moxley just wanted to go and drop their belt back in the time-honored tradition of garbage wrestling on a pier in New Jersey and put the guy over flat in the middle because he's his fucking hero. The bank-addicted drug robber is this guy's hero. Said I'm sure he wanted to do business the right way with the fucking Outlaw Mud Show. While meanwhile, he's the goddamn world champion of a national television promotion. But I'm sure Tony said, oh, we got to have interference to tie into our storyline because he's still a mark. Tony, I don't care whether there's a tie into your storyline or not. When your world champion that you just announced you signed to a brand new 5-year contract is doing a job in a garbage match, getting thrown through broken glass and barbed wire and bullshit on a pier in Atlantic City to a convicted fucking felon, you've already jumped the shark on that one. So anyway.
The mention of coaching and mentoring was interesting because previous releases they put out were actual positions. You know, this person will be vice president of development and this person will be head of talent relations. This is a very loose. He'll also be coaching and mentoring. How's that different than whatever he does now?
Again, this stuff writes itself. Because, okay, Tony did the right thing, cost him a lot of money to correct his mistake, but he signed his world champion to a new contract for a longer time, and he can't do garbage shows or indie matches anymore. So he's finally got himself in that spot. And, of course, along with it came his champion doing a job on a pier in Atlantic City. But then he has to go further and act like that is not the setup to a punchline. Jon Moxley molding young minds in wrestling, mentoring young. What's he going to tell them how to do? Drink blood and grind bones to make bread?
To make bread.
I'll grind your bones to make bread, my pretty.
I'm going to build a house of your bones.
Yes, and then throw you through the house of your bones.
And I'm going to crack them.
This is a guy who has gone on record as saying he admired the bank-addicted drug robber. This is a guy who is, when he had a well-paying, high-paying network television national promotion job, chose to go wall around with these fucking mutants and the fucking mutants that pay to see that shit for his fucking hobby, and he's going to be teaching young wrestlers. The guy who can't have more than one kind of match, and it sucks because hit the ring from the crowd or the parking lot, go to the floor, use furniture, somebody's going to bleed, defy every goddamn law of gravity, physics, and logic in doing whatever you're going to do, and then rinse and repeat over and over and over. That's exactly where, if I had somebody come up to me and say, we're giving you Jon Moxley, in the glory days of OVW, we're giving you Jon Moxley. What can you teach him? I'd say fucking nothing. It's impossible. We see what we got. This is what he wants to do. So, mentoring or teaching young wrestlers, hakpatu. Good Lord.
It is interesting the changing dynamic backstage right now with Omega and the Bucks being completely out of the picture at the moment. Of course, CM Punk's out of the picture at the moment. It's changed a lot of the makeup behind the scenes. It's changed a lot of the voices that Tony's listening to I shouldn't say it's changed the voices, but he's listening to the certain voices more than he had before.
Well, they're the only voices that's left around, and I didn't think it could get any worse, but apparently it can. Again, I said it. I'll close this up. I said it the other day, possibly even earlier in this program. I remember saying it. I just don't remember when. People see Tony, depending on their position, the young wrestlers that just wanted to make a name for themselves in the world, they think he's the greatest booker in the world because he's booking them on television. The veterans see him as an easily manipulated source of a high-paying job where they can kind of do whatever they want. The fucking old-time wrestlers that don't want a job are sitting there looking at what the fuck is going on here. This is embarrassing. The fucking fans think Tony's a babyface up until recently because he was petting and making over all of their favorite wrestlers and treating them fairly until they found out just fairly recently that when you have an environment like that with no leadership and no structure, that sooner or later the whole thing blows up. And now they're starting to boo him because he's taken away all their favorite wrestlers because he couldn't manage them, so he had to suspend them. That may be a sound effect one of these days on the internet.
And apparently the suspensions aren't going to end anytime soon because the reports are that there's a holdup because someone has threatened legal action, and it's kind of a stalemate at the moment.
Well, and I'd like to know exactly who's threatening the legal action and what that legal action may be, because I bet you I'd probably agree with it, but maybe I wouldn't. Maybe the other ones have decided to. Let's see if maybe, what do you think? Maybe Olivier and the Cucamonga kids want to sue Tony for this and take the company away from him because they can run it better than he can. They started the whole thing anyway.
I don't know if they have a suit against Tony. Other parties potentially could. But
you will.
There's a reason why this thing's going to take a while. And again, Mega's tied up in the middle of it. We'll see if anyone figures that part of it out. But
now everybody leave Megan alone.
Her name is Mega. But what I was going to say is all that's happening. There's no end in sight to it. Apparently, Tony just did an interview the other day where people are thinking what he implied was that CM Punk actually was working in a backstage position as an executive too, although that hasn't been confirmed. AEW right now is Moxley just re-signed there. Would you sign that deal if you were him? Because WWE did want him.
Well,
and they're going to bring in, the rumor is they're going to bring in his wife now as a commentator in AEW or as an announcer or interviewer, whatever she does.
Well, the Hartley Boys' wife's got a job, right? So why shouldn't everybody? If you're related, go ahead and hop on. But WWE wanted him back. I don't think he wants to go back to WWE because he didn't like it there because he couldn't bleed and do all of his shit. And I think the only reason they wanted him back after they've seen, if they indeed did you hear this from a reliable source?
I mean, I've heard that they wanted him.
Would they want him back or would they just not want fucking Tony to have him?
Well, either way. I mean, I don't think there's any difference in their mindset about that. But, one last thing I want to say, you brought up the Nick Gage factor and the things that he said about him. I've seen Moxley, I saw him throughout his WWE career, saw him in The Shield, saw him in developmental, clips of his stuff on the indies before that. He was never the version of Moxley we have now. It's almost like, I'm not going to use the word cosplay, he's not cosplaying Nick Gage, but it's almost like that wrestler that he admires so much has had a major part of the character of Jon Moxley now, because he was never like this before. So I actually think there's a big tribute to Nick Gage and the entire Moxley persona on camera.
I could have given Moxley a pass if when he came back from rehab, he started actually being a pro wrestler instead of the fucking deathmatch king of drinking blood and breaking bones. But if that didn't change him, I don't think anything will.
Well, he's certainly staying with AEW.
He had the chance to blame what he had done in the ring up till then in AEW on substance abuse. He did not choose to take that.